So to make our Hungarian chicken soup, we are going to need a chicken, of course, and I'm using a full chicken. And the first thing I'm going to do is butcher the chicken and make it into smaller pieces, because I don't have a pot that's big enough to fit the chicken and all the vegetables if I leave the bird whole. So anyway, I butcher that bird, I cut off one leg, then I cut off the second leg, then I break the back, then I cut off its neck, then I cut off its wings, and then I split it down the breastbone, and basically I dismember this chicken. That's a great name for a death metal song, Dismember the Chicken. Anyway, once that chicken is dismembered, butchered, it's time to move on. So for this recipe, I'm going to take the biggest pot I can find in my house, and then I'm going to add in that chicken to the pot. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, try to find a huge pot, because you need to fit chicken along with a whole bunch of vegetables as well. Anyway, once you have put your chicken into the pot, I'm going to add a generous helping of salt. Then I'm going to throw in some fresh black peppercorns. I'm also going to add a bay leaf, which is not authentic, so add at your own risk. So I'm going to add in a couple of cloves of garlic. Now it's time to add the vegetables. I'm going to take an onion, I'm going to cut it into 2 halves and then add that to the pot. I'm going to take 1 tomato and I'm just going to cut 2 gashes on the top side of the tomato and put that in the pot as well. I'm going to add in some fresh parsley, stalks and all. I'm also going to add half a cabbage into this. I'm also going to add in some cauliflower. And finally, I'm going to add 1 big green pepper or green chili. And then I'm just going to add in water. And you want to add in as much water as you can. You want to completely submerge the meat and the vegetables if possible. Anyway, I told you already my pot is not that big, but that will do. Anyway, then I'm going to light up that stove and I'm going to put the pot onto the stove and I'm just going to let it bubble away. Now this is going to take about 45 minutes to an hour to cook, depending on the size of your chicken. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to cover it with my lid and cook it on a medium heat. And of course, I'm going to make sure every 10 minutes or so I check in on it. So cover it with the lid and let it start cooking. After the first 10 minutes, I had a little peek, made sure everything was going okay, and then I decided to turn the heat down to low and I covered it and let it continue cooking for another 25 minutes. But like I said, make sure you open it up every 10 minutes or so and make sure it's looking fine and let it cook. Anyway, after about 45 minutes of cooking, our soup is ready. So what I'm going to do first is remove all the vegetables. Once I'm done removing the vegetables, I'm going to remove the chicken pieces and set them aside. Anyway, after you've removed the chicken and the vegetables, just taste your soup once to see if it needs any more seasoning. Otherwise, just strain it through a sieve. And of course, make sure you crush that garlic, because it's going to be soft and it will go right through the sieve and get all that garlicky flavor into that soup. Anyway, I'm going to put that back on the stove actually and reduce it just a little bit more to intensify the flavor. Now ladies and gentlemen, this soup is normally served over some noodles or some pasta, but since we can't have that on keto, I'm just taking a zucchini, cutting it in half and making some zucchini noodles. Now you can have the zucchini noodles as they are and put them in the soup just like this, or you can dunk them into the boiling soup for a little bit, allow them to cook and then take them out. Anyway, to serve the soup, I'm going to put my zucchini noodles down, some of the cooked ones, a little bit of the fresh ones, a piece of chicken, some of that cabbage, a little onion as well, some of that cauliflower, and then I'm going to pour that soup right over. And the heat of the soup will cook the fresh zucchini noodles, or at least soften them, plus they will have a bit of a bite. And I'm going to finish it off with some fresh parsley. And because this is a Hungarian dish and I am feeling cheeky, a little bit of paprika powder. Anyway, our keto húsleves or Hungarian chicken soup is ready. For this recipe, you are going to need tomatoes, heavy cream and a couple of cloves of garlic. The first thing I will do is preheat my brand new oven to 200 degrees Celsius or 400 Fahrenheit. Then I'm going to chop my tomatoes. You want to just chop it right down the middle into halves. Not quarters, not slices, no funny business. Just chop it into halves. Then I'm going to add the chopped tomatoes to my baking tray and I will also add in the garlic. I will season it all very generously with salt and some black pepper powder. You can of course use freshly cracked black pepper as well, no problem. And then of course a very healthy pouring of olive oil over everything. And then of course give it all a good mix. Now I've seen recipes where people roast the tomatoes skin side down, some people roast it skin side up. In my case it doesn't matter. Some can be up, some can be down, some can even go round and round. It doesn't matter. Anyway, I'm gonna pop that tray into my brand new oven now for about 50 minutes to roast. And then they shall just roast away in my brand new oven. Which, by the way, if you click on the I button on the top right hand corner of the screen, you can watch my unboxing and review video of the new oven. After 50 minutes, my tomatoes are roasted and ready to use. But let's just take a minute to appreciate how beautifully they have been roasted by my brand new oven. Oh yeah! Anyway, now it's time to transfer the tomatoes into my blender and make sure you scrape everything out from the roasting tray. All the oil, all the roasted brown bits. If you need, put some hot water to deglaze the pan and get all those good bits into your blender. And then of course we're going to blend everything till it's a beautiful smooth consistency. Now I'm going to pour out the soup into a saucepan, but I'm going to make sure I run it through a strainer because there are bits of skin and seeds that I don't want in my soup. We want a smooth and rich soup. And no, don't worry, you aren't taking out all the fiber or anything like that from the tomatoes. This is just the skin and seeds. And of course, if you want to eat the skin and seeds, by all means don't strain your soup or just eat raw tomatoes. Anyway, I'm straining my soup, and once I'm done, I'm just left with those grisly bits that I don't really want, which you can discard now. Anyway, we're going to turn the heat on now and let the soup warm up. Also, you want to check your soup for consistency, and since mine was quite thick, I added a bit of water to thin it out a little. And then of course I added in the heavy cream and I gave it all a good mix. Now once again, if you want your soup thinner, add more water. If you want it thicker, then leave it be. This is also a good time to taste the soup for seasoning, and mine needed some salt and some pepper. So I added that and I gave it one final good mix, and my roasted tomato soup is ready. Now just pour yourself a bowl of that soup and look at how rich and thick that is. Then you want to drizzle over some of that good quality olive oil as well, and maybe some freshly cracked black pepper for a peppery kick, and a few drops of heavy cream to make it look good for the photos. And that's it folks, our keto roasted tomato soup is ready. And it looks absolutely delicious. And once again, I want to bring your attention to the texture of the soup. Look at how rich and luscious it is. Anyway, that's your keto tomato soup for those cold winter evenings. Now for this recipe, I'm going to be using some basa fillets and also some prawns, and I'm just going to chop them up into cubes and the prawns into halves. You can use whatever seafood you like. There is no compulsion to use what I've used. Now I'm going to make this soup in my wok, and I'm going to heat up some olive oil. Into that goes the white of the spring onion, followed by the ginger, the garlic, and just fry that off till the aroma starts to fill your kitchen. Then I'm going to throw in my seafood and just give that a good stir. Now I'm going to season it with some salt. I am also going to add some Szechuan pepper powder, some pandan powder which I've used in the recipe before, some kaffir lime powder, and some lemongrass powder. Now folks, don't panic if you can't find these powders. You can use fresh ingredients or you can completely skip them. Use salt, pepper and maybe a little bit of cayenne. It'll work just as well, trust me. Anyway, give that all a good mix and let the seafood cook. Now I'm going to add the middle part of my spring onion. Now I'm going to throw in some rice wine vinegar, some soya sauce and some fish sauce. Now I know you might be paranoid about the sugar in these sauces, but we're using a light soya sauce and we're using small quantities of it. Next I add in my fish stock. This is some good freshly made but ready-made fish stock. And I'm also going to add some water to this. And just let that cook and let everything infuse. Now I'm going to add in the green part of my spring onion. Once that comes to a simmer, I'm going to pour in 1 beaten egg and give it a good mix. This will give you lovely little bits of egg and I love this. Normally we use only the egg white, but since we're on keto, let's use the yellow as well. Let's be dangerous. Let's live vicariously through egg yolks. And just let that bubble away for a bit and finish it off with some coconut milk and some coriander. And our soup is ready. Pour yourself a bowl and get drinking. The soup, that is. For this recipe, you are going to need some broccoli, cheddar cheese and some heavy whipping cream. And no, that's not all the broccoli I'm using. I've actually got 250 grams of broccoli florets for the recipe. That piece you saw was just for representational purposes only. So the first thing I'm going to do is get a pot of water on the stove and I'm going to season it with some salt. You want it to be nice and salty like the sea. Once the water comes to a boil, I'm going to add in my broccoli and I'm going to boil it for about 5 or 6 minutes till it's fully cooked. Now you can cover it with a lid and cook it, or you can just keep it open, either is fine. Make sure that the broccoli takes a nice dip into that water. Basically, you occasionally want to drown the broccoli. Anyway, to test if your broccoli is cooked, just run a knife through it and it should cut through like butter. Once your broccoli is cooked, you want to remove it from the water and I'm going to transfer it directly into my blender because we need to use that to make the soup. Now don't throw away the water in which you boiled the broccoli. You want to reserve about 2 cups of that water because it's just like a broccoli stock and we're going to use it later. So now it's time to blend the broccoli in our food processor and you want to slowly add that water which we saved. The idea is now to add that broccoli water a little by little till the broccoli is fully blended. Now if you prefer a thick soup, then don't add too much of that water. If you prefer a thin soup, then you add a little more water. Anyway, once it's as thick as you want it, pour it out again into the pot which you want to make sure is on the stove and the stove is turned on to a low heat. Now don't forget to also rinse out the blender as you don't want to waste any of that soup. Now we're going to add our cheddar cheese into the soup and we're also going to add in the heavy whipping cream. And then of course give it all a good mix. Now you want to keep stirring this on a low heat till the cheese and the cream dissolve into the soup and all the flavors get to know each other. Now again, depending on if you want the soup thicker or thinner, you can add some more of that broccoli water or you can reduce it down on the stove to make it thicker. Also, now is a good time to taste the soup for seasoning, and since mine was perfect, well, that's pretty much it. My soup is ready. Now I'm going to serve the soup in a nice little mug and fill it right up to the top. Then I'm going to throw on a little more of that cheddar cheese and finally some freshly cracked black pepper. Anyway, that's our quick and easy keto broccoli cheese soup ready. And of course, I want to show you just how nice and thick and rich and delicious that soup is. I mean, look at that texture. Oh yeah!